I'm for it. I'm sure you could find surveys for it, against it, for it, against it. I look at Major League Sports. Nobody has more power, more money than these multimillionaire athletes. Nothing worked. For decades, they did everything they possibly could. They fought random drug testing. They were against it. Guess what? Finally, the unions relented. They tested. And the most powerful sports people in the country are now cleaning up their games, and drugs are going away. So does it work? Some surveys say yes. Some say no. But I'm looking at everyday life, and I think we need it. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. No, I'm here now. Excuse me.
Hi, I'm Monica DeCoste, and I live on...
Make that closer to your mouth.
I'm Monica DeCoste, and I live on West Oak Street in Basking Ridge. And I was looking at your decisions on your recommendations when they get caught after one drug testing. They could care less what you do. You can take away their parking space. You can do anything you want. What you need to do, you expel them. What are they doing? They go home, and they do what they damn well please for 4 to 10 days. What you need to do is bring them in and start educating them at that point. Scare straight that point. You're here. You're not going to be sitting home. You're not going to be watching your games. You're not going to be doing this. You're not going to be drinking or doing whatever. Mom, dads are away. You have to start doing something at that point. It's not right to leave them home. The second time, you know, at that point, you just have to do something even stronger. It's education, educating them, educating the parents on what they need to do, what boundaries that they can put up, what their rights are in their own homes regarding this is another big thing. You really need to educate them. You know, we're kind of on the blind side sometimes of where and what we can do. They're minors. Oh my God, we can't do this. We can't, you know, we can't kick them out of the house. They're doing something wrong. We can't do this. We can't do that. But if we can kind of let them know where we can send them, where we can at least put them, they can get a GED. They can and then go on to college. You have to kind of just put it that way and just understand that the kids don't care. They're just looking for their next fix. So, thank you.
Can I just remind everyone to sign in when you come up to speak, please, and put your name and address? Thank you.
Lori Berger, 43 Sentinel. I am told that drugs are available to our children at Ridge and at other locations in our community. As a result, I also know that our children are subject to severe peer pressure to try drugs. I implore this community to band together to implement random drug testing, to give our young children a neutral reason to say no. That's all.
Hi, Robin and the board. Hi, Bev. I know some of you personally, many of you I don't. First of all, I wanted to thank you for this forum and for the presentation several weeks ago. I think it's a great step for this community. But frankly, I'm disappointed by a lot of what I've heard tonight, and the presentation that kicked off this meeting tonight, led by Mr. Markorian, and the format that was taken. The student resource officers, police officials provided the stats a few weeks ago. Drugs and heroin are on the rise in New Jersey, in our township, in our schools, in our neighborhoods. From 2007 to 2012, 2004 to 2012, however you look at the stats that were presented, drug use is on the rise in our community. Suspicious usage reporting is down. Deaths are up. Clearly, we haven't nailed it. So while it's informative to take a look at all of the stats and a PowerPoint full of copy about what we have done, what we've been doing, it's certainly not forward-looking. I don't want to hear what policies are, or how busy people are, or that there are a lot of issues with dogs, or that we'll look at the data. What we want to hear and what the people in this audience have repeatedly stood up and told you we want to hear, is that you're open to trying new things, that you're open to doing things that engage this public here tonight and in other areas, that engage the local police with the parents, with you, to take action. We elect our officials to be reactive, but also proactive. And I know that many of you are looking at ways and are very diligent in trying to solve this problem. What we're saying here tonight is we'd like this community to be able to be involved with you. I certainly volunteer myself, and I know many others here tonight would. I think this forum is only one step towards what's necessary, and what's necessary is action. I think a lot of us have stood up here tonight and have faced this direction, when I think what we really need to be doing is also facing this direction. So the question isn't really what are they willing to do, because that's only half of the question. Really, the question is what are you willing to do? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jill Betts. I have 3 children. One graduated last year, and I have one in high school and one in middle school. I thank everybody for their time. I think there were a lot of great points, but I agree with the last person that was up here, and I think drug testing should start at home. This drug test costs $4.49. Anybody can get any drug test on the internet. It tests for marijuana, PCP, opium, antidepressants. It tests for just about everything. So if you have a question, I would start at home. I think it is important for the community to be involved, should I say the school. However, I attended Project Pride with my children last year, and it's a lot like Scared Straight. And they had 4 inmates that were up there, and not one of them said, I wish the school was present. They all said, I wish my parent was there. And some of them had parents that were there, but they ignored them, or some didn't have parents at all, some were in foster homes. So I really do believe that it starts at home. And somebody said something about losing the trust of their children if they should test them at home. Well, why not throw them a random drug test? Our kids don't have fear. They don't have good decision making. So I just believe it should start at home. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name's Debbie Bracaglia. I live at 55 Lake Road. I first want to thank you all for putting this on the table tonight. I think it's a much-needed discussion. I know I'm going to be a little bit repetitive here when I say that this is a real problem in town. And I'm not just kidding. I have 3 kids that went through the system. My daughter graduated in '03. And back then, I would have told you we didn't have a drug problem here. Unfortunately, it's not the case anymore. And as a number of people tonight have pointed out, it's here, it's in our town, and it's not the bad kids anymore, the so-called bad kids. This is happening to good kids. It can happen to anyone. It can happen to your kids, it can happen to my kids. I have some firsthand experience with this, unfortunately, and I currently volunteer as a parent facilitator up at Daytop, which is in Mendham, 2 towns over. I can't tell you the number of kids locally, some from here, some from the surrounding communities, that are struggling with this issue. Some are in residential rehab, some are in outpatient, intensive outpatient programs. Unfortunately, some are not getting any help at all. But they're starting younger and younger, and they're starting here, and they're doing it in school. I know that myself. The statistics and studies have shown that the earlier kids start, the more likely they are to have a problem. Therefore, we need to do all we can to prevent them from starting at all. There are a lot of tools to solve this problem. There's no one magic fix. We should be so lucky that there'd be a magic fix. But there are a number of tools, and we've heard a lot discussed here tonight. I think random drug testing is a tool. I support it. I don't see a downside to it. It's minimally expensive. It's minimally invasive. It's simple. It's easy to put into place. We've heard a lot of talk about the deterrence factor from it, allowing kids to have a viable excuse with their peers to say no, and I think that's a valuable plus of it. But there's also the other side of it. When a kid does test positive, the parents are notified. And I can tell you from firsthand experience in my volunteer work, kids are well along the way to addiction by the time parents know they're using drugs. So if we can get those positive results and we can let the parents know we're giving that kid and that family a chance to get the help they might need and maybe cut them off before they head down that road. So I urge you to support that. I think it's a simple tool. It's not the only solution by any means. I like the idea of bringing the recovering addicts in to talk to the kids. I know there are towns in New Jersey that do that. They bring them into high school. I think it's arranged through the county. I'm not sure. People here at that program the other night were talking about it afterwards, so that might be something to explore. And again, probably at no cost to the district. And another solution I see, or another tool, if you will, is training. The suspicion-based testing is in place right now. I understand that. I don't personally believe it's being used to its best possibility. I think we need training for the staff. I think we need to encourage our staff to report kids out when they suspect that they're under the influence. And I also think that programs like the other night, where parents are made more aware so that parents know what to look for. Because as I say, I've sat next to parents in these parent support groups whose kids are addicted to heroin and they had no idea whatsoever. If kids are using drugs, they're not going to be telling their parents or their teachers. So I think we need to use every tool we have available here because this is becoming an epidemic. And it is here in our town. And to think otherwise is to put our heads in the sand. So anything and everything we can do, we should be doing. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nick Sant Foster. You heard from my wife a little earlier. I live in Basking Ridge on North Findlay Avenue. I think our two kids have an advantage, and that is that I tell them the truth. I used to drink a lot. I almost killed a whole car full of kids. Both of my parents drank, and they never were in recovery. But I tell my kids the truth about what the consequences are. I've been in Al-Anon for 27 years. It's for family and friends of alcoholics. I highly recommend it. It seems to me there are two words that really we need to focus on these two words. The first is courage, and the second is truth. I tell my kids, well, we all talk about stress as being a lot of the cause for drug use. Stress is just a cute word to cover the word fear. And the question is, what do you do with that fear? And the kid that is easily manipulated by his peers will drink to show how brave he is. But it's actually the act of a scared kid. The kids need to learn that it takes courage to say no. That's the real courageous act, to say no. The fearful kid will say yes. The kid that is encouraged by their parents to not use, and with some gusto, I might add, have a better chance. So the word courage is very important. The word truth is very important. I need to know what to do with the truth that I hear. These kids communicate all the time about everything. They know what's going on. Rarely do they tell you, but I'll bet you they tell you more than you'd want to admit. They don't want the truth to get out because they'd be diminished in some way. We're afraid of putting out the truth because we would be diminished in some way. That puts our kids at risk. So truth is what this is about. This is about, thank you for this truth, talking about what's really going on here. We have the forum. We had the personal testimony by the two boys that were here. We need to have drug testing. That's truth. I need to know better what to do with the information that I get. I want to have help with that. Does the school help me with that? Does the police department help me with that? I know that one of the first things I did in this community was be a member of something called the Listening Center, which was an organization where people could call in and talk about their problems. It was a wonderful organization. It was hosted by Burnett Township. Maybe we need to develop something like that. We have to get this truth out. So we need courage to tell the truth. The kids, the parents, the Board of Education. Be courageous in what you decide to do about this. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Andy Williams. I live here in Basking Ridge, and I have a freshman and a senior, two daughters at Ridge High School. The parents who served alcohol this past weekend and weekends before probably aren't here tonight. And the parents who attended Pills to Heroin probably have not served alcohol to their kids. Those that did serve alcohol to their kids and did attend Pills to Heroin is probably because they had a morbid curiosity in how their kids might end up one day, or a morbid curiosity in how they might feel as a parent when they've lost a child or have a child who is in rehab. You know, it's all very well to hear about random drug testing. Of course, that could be a preventive measure, as could sniffer dogs be a preventive measure also. But, you know, those measures are reactive and they're punitive. And it makes me think about how about we take a proactive and a nurturing approach to the problem. Right now, it's such a hot topic. Let's do something about it. This has gone on for decades in this town. You talk to anybody, our past mayors who are graduates of Ridge High School, they'll tell you this has been around for decades. But right now, it's so hot. It's such an incredible topic.
Excuse me, can you turn this way? Because it's hard to hear you when you turn around.
It's such an incredible topic right now, and it's time that we do something. And I'm just so encouraged by the attendance at Pills to Heroin the other night, and it made me feel so great about maybe for once this community is actually doing something and we can actually achieve something. I'm from a marketing background, and what they say in marketing is that it takes 7 touch points before things start sinking in to your mind. So let's look at 7 touch points. What could they be? Could it be the random drug testing? Could it be the sniffer dogs? Whatever it takes. How about we look at the more simple things? How about at back to school nights, there's actually strong messaging to parents as they mill around the school about the consequences of substance abuse. How about at football games, there's actually real measures taken to stop the kids drinking? How about that? Because there seems to be very little in terms of measures taken at those football games. I know my friends' children who I would never have dreamt of drinking have fallen by the wayside at those football games. There are so many dark corners. What can you do about it? I would think there's a pretty easy way of getting around that, and I'm not sure what it is, but simple things like that. If we come together as a community and create 7 simple touch points where parents start seeing that we mean business. You know, it always blows my mind. It's one of my conundrums in life. that I took this extensive questionnaire to become an American citizen, or you go through extensive driver training to get to drive, and yet we never take any testing to become a parent. Parents don't have the skills necessary sometimes to parent. We turn to you for help, but it belongs to us too as parents. But not many parents have those skills, or not all of them. So let's help parents by becoming together as a community and teaching them that it's okay to say no to your kid. It's okay to say, I know that your friends are serving alcohol, but not in my house. Parents are scared of their children. They don't know how to say no. They don't know how to impose consequences. I went to see Greg Benson, who is a pioneer and a specialist in substance abuse amongst adults and adolescents. And he says, frankly, we're fighting upstream here against this problem. You know, it's not just a community-wide issue of environmental influence, it's a genetic hereditary thing too. We've got a massive problem on our hands, and you can join us and the rest of a momentum to fight against this. And we're not going to cure it, but if we can save one life, we've done a great job. It needs to be all of us, churches, sports coaches, the why. We all need to come together and create those 7 touch points and more to start fighting this upstream battle. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dana Oliver, and I have a freshman and a junior in the high school. I'm also a licensed social worker, and I just want to share some results from a successful program that's being run at Hunterdon Central High School of random drug screening. In 1999, after 2 years of the testing program, an anonymous survey of all students showed that of the 28 categories of drug use evaluated by the survey, drug use went down in 20 categories. Rates of drug use of multi-drug users were as follows. 9th grade, 57% decrease. 10th grade, 100% decrease. 11th grade, a 14% decrease. In 12th grade, a 52% decrease. In 2002, following a 3-year suspension of the random drug testing program, anonymous survey results showed drug use was up in 18 of the 28 categories. In the high-risk category of multi-drug users, the rates went up as follows. 9th grade, a 31.6% increase. 10th grade, 100% increase. 11th grade, 52% increase. And 12th grade, a 20.9% increase. In 2003, the testing program was reinstated, and I ask you to start one here. I work in a psychiatric hospital. I work on the adult unit, but I also work with children on the adolescent unit. And I have seen countless kids and adults who are technically kids in my mind because they're between the ages of 18 and 21, who come in after using a substance for the first time in a psychotic state. I don't know if any of you have ever witnessed somebody in a psychotic state, but they're delusional, they're experiencing hallucinations, and or their decision-making process is out the window. They're experiencing out-of-control behavior, they're disorganized, they're taking their clothing off, they're just completely detached from reality, and that happens after a one-time use. And you don't have to have it in your family, it doesn't have to be hereditary for somebody to be impacted by a drug in that way. It could happen to anyone. So thank you for listening.
Hi, can you hear me? I'm not sure. I'm Christopher. I live on South Maple Avenue. I'm a graduate of Ridge High School, and I just want to talk a little bit about specific solutions that might be used to combat the drug problem. I think a lot of people already talked that there is a drug problem. I probably don't have much unique to add on that situation. But I think it's important that when we look at solutions to the problem, we look at solutions that work. I think when you're coming down to vote on specific policies to be implemented in the district, it is not enough that there is a drug problem. It is critical that the solution solves the drug problem or makes progress towards solving that problem and does not make it work. I think a lot of interesting solutions have been proposed tonight, but I want to talk about random drug testing. The body of peer-reviewed scientific evidence is at best inconclusive, at worst shows that it causes harms. I think that you can compare it to other studies, such as the one that was just talked about in Hunterdon County, but I don't think that those two data sets compare. One of them talks about 2 years from a single school district, and I'm suspicious of anything that causes a 100% decrease. Whereas the peer-reviewed studies look at tens of thousands of students across thousands of schools and show that it can increase drug use and at best, again, does not improve the situation. It is not a good idea to make an action without thinking about that action, and I think it's important to think about the full consequences of that action. It is true there is a drug problem. It is not true that any solution is the answer. It is true that solutions that work are the answer.
I'm sorry, I'm back again. I just want to respond to the points about random drug testing and them not working. There was a study done by the U.S. Department of Education on the effectiveness of random drug testing. And it looked at Hunterdon Central, and it also looked at the Oregon study. And it concluded that the Oregon study was really no good, because it started out with 18 schools. There was a controlled group and another group, and 9 of the schools dropped out. So the conclusions at the end could not be counted as being of any use, because it wasn't the control group. I'm sorry.
We're just going to limit everyone to coming up once. I'm sorry. 'Cause we're going to limit people to coming up once during this time because we have so many people that want to speak. Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Tanya McCabe, and I actually forwarded my letter to you yesterday. Hopefully you all read it. But I'm back here again because I wanted to tell you that 15 years ago, I came to this town from New York City to start and raise a family. This year, my daughter started Ridge, and I have a 4th grader at Oak Street. I really never knew about the drug problem at Ridge until last June of 2013, when I was informed how a senior student graduated days after she and her brother were charged for distribution of a controlled and dangerous substance of marijuana and ecstasy. And what is more deplorable is that the Ridge
Sorry, can you just a little slower?
I'm fast. Okay. And that the Ridge graduates of 2013 gave her a standing ovation when she received her diploma. A standing ovation for a drug dealer clearly states and implies that drug use at your school is a culture, in my opinion. It has now been confirmed through other parents that drugs are available at Ridge via the lunchroom, stairwells, bathrooms, and in the woods, wherever that is. As a parent, I am doing my job, trust me, okay? Outside the home, the school is the most influential environment for our kids. And I believe that schools have a moral and legal obligation to keep our kids safe, and that includes a drug-free school. The problem that you have, I feel, is twofold. You have users, and you have kids that are peddling drugs at school that may or may not be using drugs. So I believe that both random drug testing and the drug sweeps would be a deterrent for both of these types of problems that you have. Education-wise, children do not want to be lectured from the podium with touchy-feely psychology. I certainly am not an advocate of that. But a field trip to a rehab center, a jail, or a morgue would leave a lasting impression and set some kids straight. A trip to a funeral home when I was in high school, after my friend died, left a lasting impression on me when she lay in a coffin all mangled because her mom did not want any repair done to her because she wanted us to see what the effects of drugs and coke did to her while she was driving. And I never touched drugs because I didn't want to lay there all mangled in my prom dress like she did. And as for programs like DARE, as you know, they don't work. You can Google it. Department of Education stopped their funding in 2009, and many states have replaced it by implementing their own programs with former addicts teaching students about the perils of drugs. I have heard many moms suggest volunteer monitors in the bathroom, so one less place for the sale of use of drugs to take place, along with cameras in all your stairwells, with police presence in the woods and more supervision in the lunchrooms could also be other forms of deterrence. As for the random drug testing controversies, parents who do not want their kids tested can simply opt out. And for those who say that students will lose trust, I have news for you. Students who play by the rules at Ridge have lost trust in the administration that allows their peers to break the rules by using and selling drugs at school. No, I'm not done. I urge the board to seriously listen to all ideas. This is our community and our schools, and only we know what works best for our children and our schools. We don't need any evidence-based programs. Studies from Oregon, do you know that the rise of heroin right now in Oregon is on the rise and kids are dying every day? We can't compare Oregon to New Jersey, which is the hub of the Northeast for drugs, and we have two major interstates that surround our town. And plus, we don't need any evidence-based programs that can take years to take effect to tell us what to do, as we don't have time. Something has to be done to stop the rise of this trend. Kids checking into rehab, families destroyed, and sadly, kids dying. Of utmost importance, it is to keep our drugs school-free by not allowing drugs to come through the front or back door or windows of your school. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for holding this forum. I think it's important that as a community we talk about it, and I think by you having this forum, you've let us know.
Tell us your name, please.
I'm sorry. I'm Elaine D'Addario. I live on 46 Dykeman Place. But I appreciate that you're having this forum because it tells me that you know there's a problem too. I'm a mother of an 8th grader who is going to Ridge next year, and I'm concerned, I'm frightened, and I'm horrified with the fact because the drug problem here that exists. Sadly, 5 years ago when this topic was a growing problem, and I was a parent to both a 3rd grader and a preschooler, I was mistaken to believe that the situation didn't concern me. In a blink, I find myself in the middle of what has turned into a drug epidemic. How did we get here? What can be done? I'm not as hopeful that any change made now will actually help my 13-year-old, as change takes time, but I am hopeful that if effective consequences are put in place in the next few years, my 4th grade son will be able to go to Ridge as a safe place to be educated. I'm not looking forward to sending my 13-year-old son into the battle zone we call Ridge, where the academic stress has them racing to nowhere, and the drug-free, drink-free student is the minority because the peer pressure is at a maximum. The Basking Ridge School District has a high bar academically, which lands our town on the prestigious lists of best towns in New Jersey. But yet, our anti-drug policies are inefficient and defenseless in keeping our students in a drug and alcohol-free environment. The drug addiction list is the next list Bernards Township will find itself on if this trend continues. We know we have a problem, which is why we're here tonight. I am thrilled that the drug conversation has been put on the agenda and hope that the board members are ready to implement education and procedures in our school that combat drugs and intoxication. I think positive solution would be random drug testing with an opt-out program. Along with random drug testing, drug-sniffing dogs, bathroom monitors, etc., whatever it takes. Random drug testing costs approximately $5,000 to put in place. What a reasonable price to pay to spare even one child from drugs. I hope the conversation doesn't end here and that we can reach a solution. We can't afford any more deaths. 5 years ago when this came up for a vote, there were 5 kids now with Ed dying today of heroin overdose that were in this school. That vote was voted down, and I don't know if it would have helped them or not, But you need to think about that because we have new kids coming in. Maybe we can help them. Okay? Thank you for hearing me.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brooks Betts. I live on Oak Street. Have a couple of kids in the school program as well. I think that just this was great for me to just come and see. I'm never really in town during the week, so my wife asked me to come over with her tonight. I think it's a great topic. I think that all of these points that have come through are loud and clear to me. I could just let you know, from a school perspective, I've worked with many of the people in the program. You know, I've had some troubles with my kids in the programs too. So I can tell you I am not afraid to drug test my kids. I'll do it. I'll do it whenever I need to. I will call parents if they come over and kids come over and they're messed up. I have the no questions asked about the ride home, but there will be consequence with it. I have a breathalyzer that I'll pull out any Friday night when any kid comes into the house because I know it's there. But I think that an interesting point that I heard when one of the other graduates from the high school came in and said, you know, he graduated from here, he knows. In fact, they all know. So I think it's kind of interesting. Maybe you need to have some of those discussions, I think, with some of the people within the school. What do they know? What are the ones that get caught? How would they stop it? They know what's going on. They know how you could stop it. And I think that that's really an important thing to maybe take a look at. The drug test, you're right. They'll figure out how to get around it. Everybody knows. I can't believe how smart they are to figure out how to get around it. So I don't know if really the effort, the scare tactic, or whatever really works. But again, I'm on the fence of whether it is. Certainly I believe in freedom. I know that the teachers wouldn't like to be random drug tested. I know I at work don't think I want to be random drug tested because there is consequences that come with that. At work, I'd probably get fired. Okay. At school, is it going to go on my record? Can I not go to college now? Do I have to go, to tech school? Do I drop out? Do I feel like a loser? All these things come into play. And I do. I genuinely appreciate both sides of the argument. And it is a tough call of what you got to do. And sometimes, you'll do things and you'll fail and you'll learn and you'll move on. But I think there's plenty of things you brought up here that you don't have to put in a random drug test. Because, man, I go through TSA at the airport all the time. Random is a joke. It's just a joke. You guys know where it's coming from. You know what you can do about it. I mean, I've already talked to resource officers about other issues with, abuse and cell phone cameras and booze. But I can tell you what, if it's not happening during the day, just watch Thursday night, Friday night, etc. You'll know. And someone asked that question about, how do you get rid of drugs at the Friday night games and the drinking at Friday night games? Is you have a Saturday noon game. And everybody knows it. So those are the kind of things you got to talk. You got to threaten them with it. You got to do some things. I agree. So I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Okay, if there's no one else for public comment, I think the board would like to discuss now. Or is there someone out there? Okay. Can't see down there, sorry.
Doug is coming.
Okay.
Doug Wicks, Swan Lane. I heard all the comments here. This is not about that. It's about another thing that's just as insidious in my mind. It's called Common Core. You're going to adopt the core curriculum.
Hold it closer, we can't hear.
Can you hear it? Yeah, tonight, and I think you ought to. I don't know how much you've reviewed that or what you've looked at, but I've been to many Common Core meetings where they're against it, and I've talked to parents from Bernards Township, and they're very concerned about the slant that's put on the curriculum and how our kids' minds are not getting poisoned by drugs, of getting poisoned by what they learn. And I think that you should resist it, and I think you ought to really analyze the curriculum. I went through some of the DOE's model curriculum on history because I thought it would be quick to analyze. And this is History 1. Analyze the various rationales as provided as a justification for slavery. Well, I think that's important, but I don't know why they emphasize it. Relate to the impact of the Supreme Court decision regarding Amistad. Analyze arguments for new women's roles and rights and explain why 18th century society limited women's aspirations. Determine the impact of African American leaders and institutions in shaping black communities in the North. All of these are important, but I think they take up a very large part of the curriculum. And I think you have to analyze what's going on here, because I don't think our kids are getting a straight idea about what this country is about. And we're becoming apologetic for what our country is. And I think it starts there. And it's going to impact on this country long after I'm gone. But while you're in my age, this country's going to drift a way that you don't like. And I think you ought to correct it now by analyzing the curriculum. Thank you.
Okay, there's no one else for public comment now? Okay.
Can I say just one thing? I came to the meeting when they put this pack together. We paid an awful lot of money for acoustics, and it doesn't work. And I think somebody ought to look at it, because I remember there was a special extra fee. I remember everything that happens in the building, and there was a big cost expense for acoustics, and we didn't get our money's worth. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to close public comment on agenda items. And now we're going to have a board discussion. I don't know if anyone wants to start with any comments or feedback about the presentation or the public comments that we've gotten so far tonight. Any takers? Bev, go for it.
I'm so glad we had this discussion tonight, and I think we've heard a lot of really good opinions and ideas from the community. I think this has to be an ongoing dialogue because it is a community problem that the schools play a role in. I love some of the suggestions, like having some kind of health day and getting those compelling speakers that we had from the Pills to Heroin program here for the students. I think the majority of the board was at the presentation that night, and I know I brought my freshmen with me to see the speakers, and it really had an impact. I like the idea of 7 touch points and trying to get the point across every time we can. Several people mentioned drug exchanges going on in the restrooms, and surely there's something we could be doing better to monitor that situation. And I love that several people talked about all elements of the community coming together to address this problem. I think that the one thing we really need to spend more time on before we actually execute, and I know not everyone's going to agree with me, is the random drug testing, because I still think there are some issues that have to be meshed out. One thing that really concerns me is that a child who's on legally prescribed psychotropic medications for things like anxiety and depression is going to test positive. So we definitely have to put together a program with an opt-out or a way to address these students who are more prone to anxiety issues, and that's certainly not going to help their situation if they have to pee into a cup. I also always get concerned about the legality of doing something like this. Our job as a board is to provide the best possible education to our students, and we certainly don't want to put a program in place that's going to drain us of time and money for legal issues. So before we press go, we've got to figure out if there's something we can put in place that is the right thing and the legal thing and the safe thing. And those are my thoughts.
Preeti?
I appreciate everyone coming out here today. There's definitely a variety of opinions. I think everyone here on the board, the administration, and in the audience care about our students and the best way we can do something. However, I actually have questions since Sherry's here. Can we ask them? Is this going to be interactive, or I just want to understand.
Okay.
Is that all right? In particularly about the random drug testing, I know that it has to be, I believe it's only for students with privileges. You cannot test for students that don't have privileges. First of all, is that correct?
Well, you can also have a policy where a parent signs a child up for it. So I've seen policies not only for participation in extracurriculars or activities, but where the parent signs the student up for participation.
Okay. Then consequently, the consequences the administration has ability to use is what's in policy and procedures?
Yeah, you would set all that up as part of it.
Okay. Then that kind of leads into my next question is middle school. They don't have so many privileges like parking and so many after-school sports and clubs. So
I
how would you
don't think
address
I've seen a policy in the middle school level.
middle school random drug testing? You haven't seen a policy.
I know there's at least one voluntary middle school program that I've
Yeah.
heard of, but not mandatory.
It would probably be similar to
The
that.
parents sign
It would
them
have
in.
to be
To that
voluntary
option,
again,
yeah.
right? Because it wouldn't be for privileges. Okay. And then the second thing is about the dogs. I definitely have not read any statute on that, whereas I did for the random drugs testing. With the dogs, how about middle school? Because most kids in high school are walking around with their backpacks. If the dogs can't go to the students, which are carrying the backpacks, the lockers are predominantly empty. So how about middle school and dogs in the middle school? Are you allowed to do that? Is that something?
I don't think it matters which age group,
Which
in
age
terms
group it is?
No, not for that.
So do we also have
It's-
to have an opt-in policy?
For
No.
that?
Not for the dogs?
No, it's basically it's your school building, and then once you establish the rules and what you're going to prohibit and not, you're entitled to enforce that.
So now would the dogs have to be set up through policy and procedure if they were implemented? Or is that something you would just do because you said you have to talk to the prosecutor?
You would set it up with the prosecutor's office.
Okay.
And you can check backpacks if they're in the lockers or if they're in the classroom, but you can't check the person or the student
But if
with
they're
the dog.
carrying the backpack, you can still check it?
What you would do is you would have the kids leave a classroom and leave their belongings in the classroom. And then you'd send the dogs into the classroom. That's how you would do that.
And how do you prevent a student, or has the prosecutor given any examples about students putting the things in somebody else's backpack or locker? That wasn't even addressed.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
mean, I understand that I'm not able to make a complete decision today anyway, but I just wanted to have some questions answered since you were there. I think this is definitely a serious issue in our town. The deaths that have recently happened have even highlighted the urgency, and I think everyone here feels the need to want to do something.
Linda?
First of all, I want to thank Nick and for his presentation and the time that it took, and I want to thank the staff that came here tonight to support him. And I also want to thank everyone who came tonight and gave us your ideas. There were a lot of ideas that are definitely worth considering. I agree with a lot of what Bev already said, but I have one more question for Sherry, and that is I've heard quite a bit in the last week or so about the restrooms at Ridge, and I'm wondering from a legal standpoint, what, if anything, can be done to monitor them?
Well, you have, you can have security, obviously, or your staff members monitoring it. In terms of cameras, it's a little more sticky if that's what you're talking about.
Well,
You
I
really
just
would
was
have to have
wondering-
it outside.
I was just
And-
wondering what, if anything, was allowed.
You can have staff members monitoring them and going in and out of them. Certainly, you can do that. And really, beyond that, it's, if you had a camera, it would have to be outside for the most part, and I don't know it would be any help to you in that regard, so, other than to identify who was in there and out.
Elaine?
Hi. I also wanted to just say it was great to see so many people out here tonight to take part in this meeting and discuss this very important issue. I think there may be, many of us have very different ideas about how we should address this problem, but I think we all care deeply about our township's young people and want to keep them drug-free. And wherever we come out on that issue, on any of the issues, I think we have to remember that we're all on the same side and we all want the same thing. And so whatever we can do to bring the community together, because it is a community problem as well as a school problem, is something I think that we really need to look at. I know that there's some things we can do at the school. I mean, one of the things that, the question that I asked about the suspicion-based testing, I think that was very telling to me that we don't perhaps test the students that we think are using. And if we're not using the policies we have right now to the best of our ability, then that's the first step as far as I'm concerned. Let's figure out a way to get more students tested who we're suspicious of. Because at the end of the day, random drug testing would not be allowed to test every student, because although the New Jersey Supreme Court did say that it's allowable, it's only allowable in certain situations. Your parent could sign you up, but also it's for privileges such as parking or extracurriculars. I think it makes sense that some of the kids who have the biggest problems don't participate in any extracurricular activities, and so you're not going to catch them. And I think that's something we need to think about. Another thing we need to think about is studies that I've certainly read a lot of studies over the last few weeks, and one of the things that seems clear, and it's in the title of one of the studies that I have here today, that positive school climates are really the thing that's one of the most important drivers of making schools reduce their drug use. Because what happens is, if kids feel they can approach someone, and I think a lot of the speakers today spoke about this, if kids feel like the school is a safe place, they can get help, maybe they have they have problems with depression or something else, and that's what's going to make them turn. Maybe that's where their fear comes from. They have fear and they want to mask it with alcohol or drugs. We need to have the school be a safe place where kids can come and get help. Could drug testing create a climate of fear and people not wanting to tell on other people? It could be. I don't know. But I do know the studies that I've seen do not support or at least raise the question of perhaps increased drug uses of drugs that are not tested. One thing that I think we need to do, and I think we need to continue to address all these issues, and I'm not counting anything out, is to look at some other problems we have, which is alcohol. I think people talked about that this evening, that alcohol is served in people's homes on the weekends. Certainly, we all hear about it around town. If you're, in what kind of condition is a student more likely to try a drug? Probably when they're already under the influence of alcohol or something else, because people don't, I don't think, sit down and say, today is the day I'm going to try heroin. They're already, under the influence of one drug, and then that makes the next step so much easier. So what can we do to address alcohol? One of the things we could do, our town does not have a municipal ordinance that makes alcohol consumption by minors on private property not a crime, but something you get a ticket for. Right now, if your children, right now you can have children in your house drinking alcohol, and that's really not a problem. I think we should have an ordinance, which, by the way, Bernardsville has, which basically, very simple, says it should be unlawful for any person under the legal age who, without legal authority, possesses or knowingly consumes alcoholic beverage on a private property. That seems pretty reasonable to me, but yet we don't have that. Now, that would be the first step, it seems to me, just cutting down on some of these parties, because one thing that's also good about these ordinances is that it doesn't criminalize this behavior. It would just give the kids a ticket, and it would take away their driving privileges, perhaps, for 6 months. Kids don't want to have that happen to them, but I think if we cut down on some of the parties, we're going to cut down on some of the behavior. And I think we need to approach this from a variety of different areas. This ordinance has been adopted by a majority of towns in New Jersey. And one of the things that's also been shown to have an effect for students and making them not use substances is that studies have shown that evidence for a moderating effect of perceived local enforcement, I'm not going to use the lingo here, but basically what it means is that if students think they're going to get caught, if they think there's going to be some consequences, they're not going to do the behavior. So if we have a township policy, and we can't do this on the Board of Education, but if we as a community say, we're not going to tolerate these kind of parties anymore, we're going to take some steps. There's a variety of steps you can take, but one of them would be, hey, we don't agree it's okay for students to drink, or for children to drink alcoholic beverages when they're minors. Now, I forgot to say, but these ordinances allow you to serve your own child alcoholic beverages, and it would also allow you to have an exception for religious ceremonies. So really what we're talking about is, you can't serve my child alcohol without my permission. I think that sounds reasonable. So, I mean, I think the point I'm trying to make is that there's a variety of steps we can take. And I don't want us to pick one and just say, if we don't do this one, or maybe we do it. If tomorrow we instituted random drug testing, and that's all we did, I don't think we'd be doing ourselves any favors, because at best, maybe it does a little bit of good, but I'm not sure, the studies don't show that. And I don't want us to feel like, oh, here's the Band-Aid, we've fixed the problem. It's much bigger than that. We have a lot of things we need to do. And I think it's great to hear different options that we've heard tonight from different people, but I want it to be a more multidimensional discussion.
Thanks. Yeah, I agree with what Elaine just said. I think it's great that there's a parent group that has formed. That's really exciting, because that's the first time that I can remember that a parent group has formed on this issue. And I think that's huge, because it has to be a combination of the community, the schools, and parents, and families that deal with this issue. All the studies that I've read show that if you only attack it on one area or two and the other one doesn't do anything, you're not going to make a lot of progress. So no matter what the schools do, if the parents don't change what they're doing and the community doesn't change, we're not going to make a lot of progress. We might make a little bit, but not a lot. If the parents do their best, but the school and the community aren't doing anything, they're not going to be able to make as much progress. So I think it's really important that all three things are happening at the same time. So I think I had said, a while ago before we had this meeting, I think this is the time to do something, because we have all three, components. People are interested. We've gotten people out to these meetings, and I think that's really important. I liked a lot of the ideas that people brought up tonight. I brought my 9th grader to the pills to heroin thing, and she's been talking to me so much about this issue. Just from coming to that, it made a huge impression on her. So I totally agree with the people who said that we should get programs like that for the students into the schools. I think that we need to do a better job communicating with the parents, the schools and the parents on this issue. I think, this is a start. We've talked, and I think there's a lot more we can do with parent education. I've spoken to a lot of parents who they really have no idea what to look for, what the signs are, in their child and things like that. So I think there's a lot that we can do if we all work together on it. Susan?
I just want to echo a lot of Elaine's comments, in that first I'm a little concerned that we're hearing drug usage is up, yet suspicion-based reporting is down. That correlation doesn't make sense to me, and it tells me I think we have a policy that's not working. Yes. And I think we need to look at that on how it's being reported, extending who can report it possibly. I don't know what the solutions are, and also what the consequences are to make them appropriate. I'm also supportive of looking into the dog sniffing. I think we need to make these schools a drug-free school zone. And if it means bringing dogs in or conducting random locker searches, I would be in favor of that. And third, I think it's really important that as a community, we fall in line and we say it's not acceptable for parents to host parties where they're serving alcohol to underage children in their house. It's not the right thing. It certainly is something where kids learn they can drink, so let's move on and try some other things too, because my parents think it's great for me to drink. They host my parties. I think as a community we just have to say that's wrong, and I don't know we out these families, whatever we have to do, what programs we have to put into place that discourages this use, because I think this is the place that it starts and it moves up from there. And those are my 3 items I'd like to have looked at.
I am not sure this board supports solving the problem. You notice the initial, this is my reactions now, you notice the initial presentation, the slideshow, that was a joke. Because politically, this board isn't committed to fixing the problem. If you fix the problem, you do as much as you can in all areas possible. That's not what this board is about. This board is political, just like the Township Committee, and they're very cautious. And you notice the jabs, let's not do this, let's do this other one. It's a little more acceptable. The March 13th presentation was wonderful. In fact, I ended up knowing one of the boys. Incredible. Tonight's program, I think, is also very good. The letters, the emails and things that I've gotten, wonderful. I can't congratulate the contributors enough. In fact, I tried to make notes. There were so many subjects, mentioned, and we shouldn't be looking at one or two. We should be looking at them all, because this is a very serious problem. I want to go back about 5 years ago. The board was split. The administration came forward and said we really badly needed random drug testing. The principal at the high school, we had the township committee come out and testify against it, and they told many of the township people that they couldn't comment in public. And next thing you know, the board was split, and we were 4-4 at the final vote. One person called from away from the meeting and said, when I get there, I'm going to vote no. And so it went down 5-4. Well, I'm sorry, 4-5. But interesting, a woman came out of the woodwork shortly thereafter, and she said, gee, when you were talking about drug testing, my son, who I couldn't even talk to, suddenly would communicate with me. I could talk to him. He was in high school at Ridge. And as soon as the drug testing was rejected, I lost him again. I couldn't talk to him. Well, she came home about a month later and found him hung in the basement. And I attribute that death alone to this board. And I think there's a lot more just like it, because, oh, we don't want to do this, we don't want to do that. We're a split group, and I'm very bothered by that, because this is a monumental problem. If you have a problem in your family, you want somebody to help. The police chief, when I talked to him, he said, if somebody came to my house and told me my son was doing drugs, I'd thank him, because it gives me a chance to try and save him. You don't hear that from this group. This group is probably going to vote no. And that bothers me very much. Dogs, random testing, a program where the students and the teachers are much more active identifying people with drugs, all of the above, and we'll make a dent in this. Don't get too serious about it. Don't make the commitment. Pretend that we're going to do something, make it sound good, and we're not going to solve this problem. It needs almost all the efforts that we can put into it, because it's not an easy problem. The kids are attracted to this, and it's going to take a lot of work. And I don't think this group, while they talk about it, has any interest. I wouldn't let these 9 people, and I include myself in it, make the vote. I would ask them specifically to survey the town, just like they did with the vacation days, and ask the town to vote. And then when we get the 8,000 parents or 20,000 parents, whatever the number is, we'll have a much better measure. But if you expect the 9 of us to make a decision, I can tell you right now, the problem's not going to be solved, because they don't want to solve the problem. And the superintendent knows that, hey, he's got to keep the support of this board. And that's not the way to solve this problem. It's so serious, and yet, well, we'll look the other way. So I'm not happy with the board. Certainly they're not happy with me. If you want to fix it, you do everything you can to fix it. If you don't want to fix it, you pretend to do this and you pretend to do that. And that's what we've been doing for as long as I can remember. If you want to fix it, take the drastic steps and do it. We're not going to hurt anybody, and we're going to try and help as many kids as we can and as many families as we can. And that's not what this board, at least traditionally, has done. And that's what this board really has an obligation to do. So my recommendation, not to vote tonight on random drug testing. Maybe it doesn't work. I think we have to do the study to find out what works and what doesn't. Serious study. And then we have to let the public know about it, and then we should have a survey from all of the people, not just 9 people up here that while they're elected, they don't speak for the whole town. This is the town issue, and it should be fixed by the town, not 9 people up here who have different agendas and everything else, including myself. So that's my opinion. I don't think this is a meaningful situation when we get done, because I don't think this board is going to fix the problem.
Sorry,
No.
it's not the right format of the meeting. It's our turn right now. You can come up in public comment later when there's a second public comment.
For the record, I would like to say that I really like you, Mike. And I do respect your opinion. I also want to thank everyone for coming out here today and sharing your very passionate thoughts and feelings. And let me just say that what we're discussing here today is not whether we need to do something. It's about what are we going to do. So we must and we will do something tonight about this problem. This is a huge problem. You know, we had 2 children go through the school district, very scared, very often quite scared, and I'm aware of all the things that have been discussed about drugs in the district, heroin, everything. It does all happen here, unfortunately, as it does in every other district. And we do have a serious drinking problem, as shown by the survey results from a couple of years ago. I commend the town for making these results public and available on the website for all to see. Other townships do not do that, and I think that's a problem. So one of the questions we're addressing here, and we heard a lot of thoughts on, is whether or not to implement a random drug testing program. And let's be really clear here. In principle, I am entirely in favor of random drug testing, okay? Had I been on the board, whenever that was, 5 or 6 years ago, I probably would have voted in favor of it. So I happen to be a PhD trained neurobiologist, so I know all about the amygdala and all of the addiction basis for things. But I've actually but I didn't do my PhD in addiction. But I have spent the last 8 weeks studying the scientific literature, the source publications. I ignored all the opinions because the opinions outnumber the publications 1 million to 1. And the opinions in favor of random drug testing are just as biased as the opinions against random drug testing, and they distort the data. It is unbelievable. So I just stuck to the actual publications, all right? And there are about 7, unfortunately, only 7 when it comes right down to it. But there must be 7 million opinion pieces that distort the reality of the situation. So, so the data, this is where we are with random drug testing, okay? What I have reviewed is studies that collectively looked at 300, I'm going to be very precise with you, 334,123 students in over 2,000 middle and high schools in the US. There are studies done outside the US, but we need to focus on what happens in the US. The vast majority of the data point to random drug testing as not working against my principle of wanting it to work. The vast majority do not show that random drug testing reduces drug or alcohol use in schools. And as we heard from one person, the largest, longest, and most detailed study on random drug testing, which was published in 2013, based on 247,000 middle and high school students, found that random drug testing, you already heard it, reduced marijuana use while at the same time increasing the use of illicit drugs other than marijuana. But don't take it from me. I encourage you to read this article published in the highly respected Journal of Adolescent Health in 2013, issue 52, pages 707 to 715. Read that and come to your own conclusions. I would like to point out a second study, which to highlight for you. This one is, the author is Dr. DuPont, who was the drug czar under the Nixon Ford administration. And notwithstanding my respect for this gentleman, this physician, especially his work on policy, the study that he authored in 2013, which concluded that random drug testing actually decreased drug use has two very serious flaws in it, okay? And I am actually a reviewer for a clinical journal, so I know what to look for, and I've seen what other people have said about studies. So here's one of the serious problems with this study. Cherry picking. They started with 27,000 surveys from 27,000 students, and they pulled out 2/3 of them without explanation. Why? Because would the results have been different if they had included everybody? They took out all the students who had been exposed to drug education of any sort. Why? Why not compare random drug testing to that aspect of it? And the second, which I think is also serious, is that Dr. DuPont actually runs a for-profit organization, and he's the executive vice president, Bessinger, DuPont and Associates. And this company that he owns, or runs, as employed by, is sets up random drug testing programs in schools. So I would say he is biased, and I think we have to read what he says, and his opinions are widely published. We have to read what he says with a grain of salt. This, for you to read on your own, this article was published in the not very respected Journal of Child and Adolescent Substance Abuse, 2013, issue 22, pages 104 to 119. So let's be really clear. We have a serious drug problem in our district. We must and we will do something about it. Random drug testing is akin to doing nothing. There are many other things we heard tonight. Testimonials, dogs, there are so many things that we could do. Even if there isn't any evidence that they work or not, we need to try them anyways, because we need to give these things a shot. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Karen, do you have something?
I wanted to thank everybody for all the emails and the comments that they brought up to the board today. I know there are a lot of people here who sent in emails who didn't get up to the microphone and speak. But I really applaud the courage it took to write your very personal stories. They were very effective and powerful. As a sign of goodwill, I'm going to tell you that your comments did not fall on deaf ears. We all want to do something. It's just choosing the right program. I personally have a nephew who also is addicted to drugs. And I asked him personally if he thought that random drug testing would have helped him. And he said he didn't know. I mean, I don't know what the answer is. I know when I was in high school and even in the middle school, the Scared Straight program really worked for me. I remember seeing so many, even just for smoking. I'm one of those people that never smoked because, you showed me that big black lung and I was like, horrified. I think that if we brought the panel, I was also at the Pills to Heroin event. I think if we brought that into the school, even at the middle school age, I think that we have to give our 7th and 8th graders a little more credit in being able to handle something. I would love to see us do more with them, as well as the high school, obviously. I don't know, I worry with big party times coming up upon us soon, the proms, the graduations, that we have a really serious problem and we need to take action soon. But we can't just rush into something and implement something that isn't going to work. I think it has to be a combination of all the different things. There were so many great ideas brought today. And maybe it's a combination of all of them. Who knows? I disagree with Mike. We don't know what the actual decision will be with random drug testing. There are a lot of very different members on the board than there were 5 years ago. So I don't know.
Thanks. I mean, I also disagree that Mike is saying that there's a decision that's already been made when there hasn't been one. I think board members want to get all the facts. They want to read everything and get all the information they can get. I think if anyone out there has any more information that you haven't sent to us, we want to get it. I think we can't rush into something overnight, obviously. There's a lot of factors that have to be considered. With some of the things that were suggested tonight seem like no-brainers, like get these kids to come in to speak to the kids in our school. That sounds like a great idea. I think we should do that as soon as possible. I think other things really need to be looked into. I think, Nick had a great idea of starting a Dropbox to put all of this information in one place for all the board members, since we can't all email each other at the same time. But we can all read all the stuff in the Dropbox and make sure everyone has had access to all the different articles. I know some of us have read like every single one of them, and other people are still trying to get all the information. I think that, as far as action of what to do, we're not taking a vote tonight. We're going to discuss this and read everything we can read. And I personally feel like, we're hearing from the community that a lot of people want random drug testing. Some people don't. Some people have very valid reasons that they wouldn't want their child to participate in it. I think, looking into it as an opt-in or voluntary or opt-out, is something that I think we should look at, because we don't know if it works or doesn't work, but we also don't know, there's a lot of things that we don't know if they work on this issue. Unfortunately, there's not a cure, there's not a solution. And a lot of these programs like DARE and things like that, they sound great, they sound wonderful, and then you read a study and they say they don't work, but they might have worked for one kid. One kid might remember what they learned in DARE, and that makes an impact. So it's really hard when you're looking at these studies. So it's a complicated issue, and it's not easy.
Can I?
Preeti, go ahead.
My memory, and Frank is here, but we already have a program in the high school in which I believe from prison they come and they speak.
Yeah, they do bring students
and they're in their
to the juniors
prison
and seniors.
clothes, and so there is already some program.
We do. Yes.
Right. So it's
I
not
think the
as
juniors
if we
and
don't have
seniors
anything.
see that program. Yeah. I'm not sure about that. I know my kids has mentioned that they saw it. I just don't remember what grade they saw it in.
But it's in high school sometime.
Yeah. Any other members? Nick, did you want to say anything? Okay. Okay, so at this point, we are up to approval of minutes, item number 10. Can I have a motion for approval of minutes, please? Bev, second. Linda? A roll call, please.
Mr. Byrne?
Yes.
Mrs. Swarner?
Yes.
Dr. Viereck?
Yes.
Mrs. Cassell?
Yes.
Mrs. McGowan?
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Richmond?
Yes.
Mrs. Wooldridge?
Yes.
Mrs. McCune?
Yes.
Madam President?
We're up to committee reports. The first one is finance. Can I have a motion for items 1 through 4 in finance? Wait, where are we up to? 1 through 19, I'm sorry. It's late at night, sorry about that. 1 through 19. That's the one with the addendum? Okay. Okay, a motion for items 1 through 19. Elaine, thank you. And a second? Susan. Elaine, did you have anything that you needed to say?
I circulated the minutes on our most recent finance meeting this morning and over the weekend to some people as well. This is mostly, actually, let me just get out my notes. What we talked about at the meeting were the issues that are on today's agenda, such as the bills list, which is typical. We're included on here is professional development for some staff, some field trips, another PSE&G direct install program, which I think we heard about the last month, and it's a great opportunity to get reduce our energy costs. And PSE&G is going to contribute 80% of the costs for new lighting in actually I didn't write which school. Oh, it's at Ridge High School, and we are going to. The total cost of the project is $193,000. But because PSE&G is contributing 80%, our net cost will only be $38,621, and this is going to be a big savings for us going forward because we're going to have much more efficient lighting. Other things that are on the finance agenda tonight, we're approving a new construction council, Murphy McCune, a firm with expertise in construction issues and law. This is going to be a budget neutral item since the work they will do was previously handled by our other council. We're also authorizing our architect to submit a plan to the Department of Education for the foods room remodel. And this is a room at the middle school. And we're also giving authority to develop a plan for the renovation of the room. And finally, of interest is the resolution adopting an amended utility and access easement for the New Ridge driveway. We have to pass this resolution, and the township will do the same, and it's one of the necessary processes for us to get the driveway started so we can do it this summer.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions? Mike?
Again, a nice job on the
Thank
minutes. I have a problem with the kitchen room at William Annan because we're going to have an area for growing hydroponic plants. Now, I asked what in the world that was, and I think it's growing plants without dirt. I think somehow the water flows through
right.
them. If it weren't for the fact that that's probably multiple purpose space, and when the hydroponics program is long gone, they can still use the space, I would vote no. But because I think you can use that space for something else, I will go along with it. But who ever heard of it? What are we doing?
Let me, you know what, because of the late hour, I wasn't going to talk too much about the foods room project, but since you brought it up, let me just give everyone a background about this project. The WAMS Foods Room dates from 1967, and it basically looks like what you'd expect a 1967 kitchen to look like, but there's just multiple stations. This has been on our long-term capital project list for many years. The total budget for this room is $410,000, but we expect the cost to be far less. We're going to get upgraded electrical. We're getting a new electrical panel. The largest expense in this entire project is for the cabinetry. Right now, the cabinets are in terrible shape. We went and toured this room several years ago when we thought about doing it for the first time. The laminate countertop is peeling away from the cabinet surface. We're also going to get a new dishwasher and a washer and dryer. These are useful for the life skills program that we have for the autistic students, and they also use this room. We're going to get rid of an accordion door, which will make it larger. There used to be 5 cooking stations, now there'll be 6, so we'll add a new station. Currently, and sometimes people wonder, is this just an elective? Why would we have so much attention to this room? This room is used by all 7th grade students for 3 periods a day, and also 3 periods of 8th grade students who take an elective. The autistic students use this room for their life skills program, as I mentioned, and one of the part that Mike was talking about, there's 2 other aspects to this, which they're going to be opening a door to the courtyard that's adjacent to the room, where there's a kitchen garden growing, and that'll sort of allow us to open up our curriculum a little bit to the science of food as well as cooking. And we're also putting in a hydroponic table so that people can have hydroponic growing garden. Now, that is something new that we're adding, the hydroponic growing area, but we really think that will be something useful for the curriculum and sort of include the overlap of science and cooking. The cost for the hydroponic area, just so that you know, is it's just several tables and a sink. It's about $40,000. Now, that area can be used for a lot of other purposes. So if, Mike, you're right, and hydroponic growing turns out to be not something worthwhile, we certainly haven't lost anything. We're just basically expanding the space for other options. And this is certainly, there's a lot of things you could use that space for. So I don't think there's any waste there. And I think it's exciting because certainly with all the issues with dietary problems in our society, and I think we talked about it a little bit at the committee meeting, the kind of processed foods people eat, having kids see about food coming from the garden and being fresh, being superior to what we can sometimes buy, I think that's very good educationally. So.
2 items. One, hydroponic. I'm going to try and get some hydroponic vegetables for breakfast tomorrow. But while I'm on that topic, wheat has been redesigned. And so the wheat plant that was 4 foot tall won't support the new seeds. And so the new wheat plant is 18 inches tall. And guess what? 2 pieces of bread today, whole wheat bread, which is recommended by the government, has the same amount of sugar as 2 teaspoons of sugar. So I don't think hydroponic has anything to do. They ought to be studying wheat and figuring out what's going on. I want to go back to the roof just for a second.
We didn't talk about, there's nothing on the roof on the...
Well, the Oak Street roof, I think, is in
Oh,
the
that was in
minutes.
the minutes, yes. I thought we were going to, tonight we were just going to do the agenda items on
Yeah, I don't think
finance.
it's a committee report now. I think we're just voting.
I'll
on
do the committee
items.
report at the
That's
next
fine.
meeting.
So next meeting is going to be the committee report.
Right. I mean,
Okay.
I just thought that was the agenda
Yeah.
tonight.
Okay,
Yeah, we're
that's
just
fine.
voting on the items. Susan?
I just want to thank our architects for sitting here in case we had questions. Really, thank you for attending the meeting. And I don't know if anyone has questions, but they've stuck it out. Thank you very much.
Thanks for doing that. I couldn't see it on there.
Okay,
They
I'm
just
going to
told me
make
they
a
were there.
question just to make it worth as well. Is there anything that we need to be concerned about, or you still have a question, or you're still trying to resolve? Like, everything in here is black and white? This is how it should be? You have no questions or any decisions that still need to be made? Okay, thank you.
Tony was here all day, running around.
Any other questions on finance? Okay, we already made a motion.
Yes.
Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Byrne?
Reluctantly, yes.
Mrs. Swerner?
Enthusiastically, yes.
Dr. Vierick?
Yes.
Mrs. Cassell?
Yes.
Mrs. McGowan?
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Richmond?
Yes.
Mrs. Wooldridge?
Yes.
Mrs. McKeown?
Yes, I also think the hydroponic sounds really cool. Okay, we're up to personnel. Can I have a motion for items 1?
Oh, can I please move items 1 through 31?
I didn't even say it yet. Okay.
I'm seconding
Second,
it.
Preeti. Okay, any comments?
I mean, I think this is mostly standard end-of-year personnel stuff, resignations, hiring, movement, things like that. Any questions?
Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Byrne?
Yes.
Mrs. Swerner?
Yes.
Dr. Vierick?
Yes.
Mrs. Cassell?
Yes.
Mrs. McGowan?
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Richmond?
Yes.
Mrs. Wooldridge?
Yes.
Mrs. McKeown?
Yes. We're up to policy. Is there anything for
Nothing
policy?
to report.
Okay, thank you. Curriculum, we have just item 1 on curriculum. Can I have a motion for item 1, please?
I'd like to move item 1.
Okay, Linda, thank you. A second. Bev? Should we vote on that first? And then-
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Is this park and Common Core?
No. No, this item is a standard item that needs to be done every year. So we're basically aligning the curriculum with the state standards in all of our subject areas.
Now, aren't the state standards, though, now, Common Core,
Not all of them.
but some of them?
Some, well, English and mathematics are.
How about the history piece?
Pardon me?
History.
No.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Byrne?
Yes.
Mrs. Swerner?
Yes.
Dr. Vierick?
Yes.
Mrs. Cassell?
Yes.
Mrs. McGowan?
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Richmond?
Yes.
Mrs. Wooldridge?
Yes.
Mrs. McKeown?
Yes. Anything else for curriculum?
Yeah, I
Rob?
just, we had a meeting on March 14th, so I just wanted to give a brief report on that meeting. We did speak about quite a few topics, so I'll just give a little rundown on each one. The first one is involving the world languages. The World Language Department is currently conducting a program evaluation for grades 6 through 12. So in the fall, 9th grade students were surveyed to determine what new language they would select if additional choices were offered. And the 9th grade students selected American Sign Language most frequently. Just recently, in March of this year, parents at all 6 schools were surveyed, and we received over 1,000 responses. And Mandarin Chinese was selected most frequently, followed by American Sign Language. So based on the survey results, 2 possible program options would be to implement American Sign Language at the high school level only, and to implement Mandarin Chinese in grades 6 through 12. Mrs. Horner also suggested that we should survey current elementary grades to assess the level of interest in taking Mandarin if it was listed as one of the options. There's still more work to be done on the program evaluation, and it should be completed sometime this spring. We also talked about Algebra 1. We talked about 2 different aspects of it. The first thing is Kristen Wolf, who's the supervisor of mathematics, gave an update on a new Algebra 1 summer school class. It's detailed information about the course was published in the William Annan Friday folder on February 28th. Course application forms will be available at the end of the 3rd marking period, and they're due May 16th. The summer course is modeled similar to the summer program at Newark Academy, which some students have taken in the past. But our summer course is much more closely aligned with our curriculum. So it would be modeled on the current 7th grade algebra course, which is an honors level course and would be taught by one of our current district math teachers. The cost of the course would be about $1,000, and it could be reduced if more students enroll in the class other than what's needed to break even. So that would be done for the first time this year. The other aspect of 7th grade algebra that was discussed is this year 15% of 7th grade students are in Algebra 1, and some students are struggling, and those students, it turns out, were in the lower range of the qualifying scores on the 6th grade MAP test. So the mathematics supervisor is evaluating the current criteria for acceptance into 7th grade Algebra 1 and will most likely make the selection process more stringent. The other topic that we spoke about briefly was the Gifted and Talented Program update. And Dr. Brian Heineman, who's the Director of Curriculum, explained that the board presentation on the Gifted and Talented Program is scheduled for the June 9th, 2014 meeting. The plan is to focus on what we can do given the district's current budget. Dr. Heineman plans to survey the K-5 staff about the math enrichment binders and determine how that program can be improved and extended through grade 12. In addition, he's looking at ways to enrich the curriculum for students who are gifted in academic areas other than math. 2 examples would be a K-5 STEM program for science and a K-5 program for precocious readers. And our next meeting will be held on April 11th.
Thank you, Linda. There's nothing to report for advocacy. We'll be meeting with the PTO presidents and having our committee meeting soon. Are there any liaison reports? No.
I went to the Somerset County School Boards Association meeting, and it was predominantly about special needs, and they had a lot of case law. So I don't think it's appropriate to go through any of that at this meeting here. But one thing I did observe was, and I don't think we're going to be doing it, but because of some inclusion law, and we have 4 elementary schools, legally I think you can have them all, the students at one school. Not that we need to right now, or are we thinking about it, but that was legally it's an option from what.
Yeah, you don't have to have every program at every school.
Right.
We do that. We move kids now.
Now you do, right? So now we don't have to do that. So that was a new law that I think came out, or new case law that came out.
Yeah, can you speak into the mic?
I'm sorry. And can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. The other extensive conversation in the audience was the HIB report, and in particular the format and what is allowed to be in our format. And every school system had a different format, and for various reasons. And then in the end, they said, "Ask your attorney." So if we haven't already, which I think you recently did, we should ask the attorney. And
I'm sure
then,
you have the best form.
well, in particular, they were even talking about what happened as a result of the HIB investigation. That should not be on there. And it was just highly questionable. There was people having different points of view. Even the attorneys in the room had different points of view. So we're just going to, anyway, I'm glad you're sitting here. And then, I think there's going to be a special task force for special needs. And I guess you're nodding your head. And I'm not sure what the criteria is to be on it. But I didn't want to be on it. So, and I think it's a statewide task force, and it's predominantly attorneys, I think, that are on it. So that's the update.
Okay. Thank you, Preeti. Okay, we're now up to public forum on other than agenda items. If you'd like to come forward, make sure you put your name on the clipboard and tell us your name and address, please.
Leslie Otero. I just want to make a comment about Michael Burns's frustration. I have 2 children that went through the school system, 2 boys, and I was very frustrated when we went through this whole process 5 years ago. And I just wanted to make a comment about a couple of things. What was clear about the random drug testing 5 years ago was that we had representatives from the Hunterdon Central School System, which was a comparable school to our school, that clearly said 2 things. The administrator said that it worked, and parents that were reluctant to go ahead with it said that it worked. The woman who even came up a little bit earlier showed you that these were the same things that they showed us 5 years ago, that when they did the drug testing, drugs did go down in each of the grades, and when they stopped doing it over a 3-year period, it went back up again. The other issues that came up, they were all addressed. For instance, the issue with children who are on medicine. These drug tests can be very specific now, and they said that for those children who are on medication that is given to them, that the pediatricians can give them clearance for it. So what basically happens is when these drugs are tested, they get the clearance for the pediatrician. So no kid who is supposed to be on medicine there won't be a downside to it. What they found was the only people that are really notified when a kid is found positive on a drug test is the parents. So everyone, all the kids know who are doing it. It's the parents that don't know. And for the parents to be told and find out that their kid is on something, and it was very drug specific. It was everything from pot to cocaine to something more serious, even more serious like heroin. The chance that you have the ability to help your children before they go off to college or something further is a huge deterrent. I don't even know why this is even a question. I really am flawed that there's really no downside. The cost is minimal. The parents can find out what their kid is up to. They can take steps and measures. The colleges do not find out. We were told this 5 years ago. It's very drug specific. The only question we had is if it can test alcohol as well. And I think the bottom line is we do need another way to tell our kids, give them a way out, to say no at these parties. And it's not the Band-Aid, like Elaine explained. It's just one way that we can help our children. And we can do the dog sniffing, we can do the monitors in the bathroom, but I just think, I don't know why we have to be so politically correct and not consider this a viable solution. It's something that we haven't even tried, and we need to do it, and it has been effective in another school system. So I really think that we should take it very seriously. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. This is a very weighty subject, and I'm going to sort of change and look back to what Linda Woolridge...
Can you give us your name and address, please?
Oh, sorry. It's Ann Lauritsen on Blackburn Road, and I'm going to go back to talk about what Linda Woolridge talked about, a curriculum issue. I am here asking that you consider reinstating the Japanese program here. It was phased out 4 years ago in a decision that was made. So why am I here now, 4 years later? The demographic landscape of the town has changed, and the kids have become interested in this Japanese program, and it has grown immensely in popularity. It turned from kids just saying, oh, I wish I could have taken it, to, I want to switch out of the language that I'm in, and I want to switch into Japanese, but there is no Japanese one that is offered. And what has changed? Miss Wingate is the teacher that is currently the Japanese teacher. Each teacher, there's been 3 different ones since my son was in the program, and each one has improved upon what the person before them has done. What has she done that's gone above and beyond? In her short tenure here, she has gained the respect of the parents, and she is adored by her students. She has applied for and received $800 worth of cultural grant money. She has established the Japanese National Honor Society here at the high school. She has planned a trip to Japan and shows to the respect of the parents, 15 of us are trusting her with our children to take them halfway around the globe. This past weekend, 23 students from Japan came and stayed in host families, and I was blessed with one of those host students. What an experience it was. He's home there now. When I was there waiting, I talked to parents, and this one, it culminated today. The exchange students had Japanese Day, and they did a presentation on the stage. I was just waiting outside, and one of the moms was here with a young daughter, and I started talking to her. I didn't recognize her. I said, oh, why are you here? Did you have an exchange student? She said, no, my daughter's in 8th grade and wants to take Japanese next year. She had no idea that it wasn't slated. The look on her face, I never met her before. She will be emailing you with information. And I've heard this over and over again just in the course of these few days. So that's what's changed in these 4 years, Miss Wingate. And it's also, if you were to take the temperature of the kids in the school, I mean, just in the carpool, at marching band practices, oh, marching band is the language to take. She's a highly effective teacher. My son did very well in the Japanese national exam. She's not just out trying to win a popularity contest. She's very successful. She's able to get kids to go outside their comfort zone, which is very difficult in world languages, to speak out in front of other teenagers. I'm very pragmatic. I worked in human resources. I know what it costs to advertise, recruit, interview, vet, hire new employees. With the new language, there's curriculum that needs to be written, textbooks that need to be purchased. This new hire must be trained, so on and so forth. None of this needs to be done. None of this money or time is required to continue the successful program that's currently in place. We don't need a survey with hundreds of people saying that, yes, they want to take it, when you have a threshold number of people, over a threshold number of students that want to take it next year. The program's here, it's running, it won't cost another dime to run. I asked my son, he's a sophomore here, what he thought of Miss Wingate, listening to all these other students. He said, she's one of the best students, best teachers that I've had here at Ridge. And then he hesitated. No, she's the best teacher I've had since I've been here at Ridge, and he doesn't say that lightly. She is truly one of those once-in-a-lifetime teachers. I think everybody up there can think back to their school days. For me, it was Miss Hershey. She was my AP Bio teacher. I went on to become a bio major. Miss Wingate is a teacher of that caliber. Every day at the dinner table, we sit down and ask the kids what they did, period by period, class by class. I've heard for the past year and a half, day by day, what's done in that classroom, and it is something that Ridge would be proud of. And it just seems a shame that we would throw that away if we do have that successful program right here. Like I said, there's no additional resources that need to be spent. Just put it out there to the 8th graders to see if they would. Actually, and people that I talked to had 9th grade children who wanted to switch out of their current program in a heartbeat. If you don't reach the threshold number, you have nothing to lose by offering it. She's truly a gem, and I'd hate to see it lost out on.
Is there anyone else for public comment? No? Okay, at this point, I'd like to close public forum. We're up to board forum. So is there anything else for board forum?
For curriculum, regarding the stressors in the middle school, I had an idea, just me alone. I just was wondering if it could be addressed by the administration in curriculum, is that we have study halls in high school for the students who have other activities, and they just don't want all of the classes that are offered for electives. In the same way, I know in 8th grade, they have a choice of electives. I just think maybe we could offer a study hall for 8th graders. I know in 7th and 8th grade, it's not, 6th and 7th grade, it's not possible. Can the administration address that in curriculum and put it on the next agenda item? To see if it can be a stress, if it's feasible to be a stress reducer for 8th grade electives, just not have elective and have a study hall instead. Is that something you could address at curriculum?
We can see what
We can
Karen
certainly
Hudock has to say
propose
about
and
it.
see what kind of feedback we
Yeah.
get.
Yeah, just
I think it would be an
whatever-
administrator. I mean, we'd have to ask the administrators what they think about it at Anna. Sure.
Thank you.
Mike?
I'm not going to take bets on what passes and what doesn't, but I do have some comments. I have nieces at Voorhees and Central 100. They know who's using drugs, those that are doing random testing or not. That's quite a testimony from the two of them. I don't know whether 263 ninth graders is a good enough survey for me to change the foreign language program. I would like to see a broader base. And they don't tell you much about Italian. And mind you, I also recognize you can't change that frequently. You have teachers and what have you, but I don't know whether I like that survey. So I'm not impressed with 200 and whatever
I
it
think
is.
the survey was more based on the parent survey, which had like over
Well, it's only
1,000, I
a few,
think.
though.
Yeah, it was over 1,000, wasn't it?
Well,
the
only
parents?
200.
It was over 1,000.
No, parents, it was over 1,000 that answered.
Oh, well, I didn't, okay.
We did talk about his point in curriculum.
Yeah,
Well,
and Mike,
I'll ask questions if
we
I have.
talked about this in curriculum. This survey was a long list of language options, and it pared it down to the top 2. And what we're thinking about possibly doing next is saying, okay, so these are the 2 we might consider implementing, but if we implemented it, would you actually take them?
I only went to page 1. I didn't go to the back page, but Russian had more votes than, I'm sorry, German had more votes than Mandarin. So I didn't get a clear picture at all. Maybe a little discussion would have helped me again.
I don't think that's the case.
What's the mental health? Is this going to be a future presentation? Those that are mental health institutions, substance abuse, I don't know what these charts and things are.
What is that?
That was a
Curriculum, that was a report at curriculum that we saw. That
Well, you haven't
you have the
presented it,
report,
though.
right? Yeah, Linda will present it later.
Yeah.
We just had too much on the
Okay.
agenda
Yeah,
to
you're
go
gonna
through every
present
single
it this
report
way.
tonight. Yeah.
It was too
Because I
long.
would like
so-
to-
Stuff tonight.
I'd like to
Right.
understand this.
Yeah.
Oh, it's 10:28.
Okay, anything else? Can I have a motion for adjournment, please? Bev, a second. Karen? Thank you.